between now and when All Things Considered starts, which
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Moscow City Council Administrative Committee. Today is Monday, August 11th at 3 p.m. and the three of us are here for our committee meeting. My name is Tom Lamar. I'm the chair of the Administrative Committee, and with me we have John Weber and Wayne Krause as the two other council members on the committee. And Gary Riedner is the city supervisor handling us today. And the first item on keeping us on track.
Wasn't my wife.
The first item on the agenda is the approval of the July 14th minutes.
I would move we approve those minutes after perusing them.
We all agree with those minutes, so they are approved. The first item on the agenda after the minutes approval, the first action item, is the cyclocross course proposal with Dwight Curtis, our Parks and Rec Director. Dwight?
All right. Well, thank you. Some months back, staff was approached by a couple of local bicycle enthusiasts who proposed a cyclocross track out at, or course, I guess I should say, out at the West Pouce River Drive ballfield property. And I've got a little bit of a slideshow here for you. And in case you didn't know, these are bikes. And they're requesting the cyclocross course. And just up front, we estimated to develop this would be about $4,700, and then an annual operating estimate of about $880. So pretty low cost right up front about everything. What's cyclocross? That was my first question. So I looked it up, and it's basically a form of bicycle racing. It consists of a course featuring the area's natural terrain, and you work with that. It's not limited to any particular type of terrain. You work with what you have. In our case, we've got the West Pouce River Drive ballfield property, and it's on the north side, so it's hilly, but it's right now it's used for hay. And the riders, they dismount and carry their bikes through and around the different obstacles that you might place there. And at this time, we have a movie for you. Only lasts about 30 minutes.
Popcorn. Who's making popcorn for tonight?
Yeah.
And okay, I got to.
Gary, you making the popcorn for tonight?
Yeah. I'll see what I can get done.
Lori, she'll probably get it.
I feel good.
Thanks, Megan.
Okay, stay on. Oh, you see it.
Maybe on the next set.
Right.
I think we have some troubles on the stairs.
I know I have good mud shedding tires.
No. Bring it in, Rocky Cheetahs.
And I didn't know I
What was the best part of going out on that lap? Going down hills. Okay, what else? You guys don't all get it. What's that? Everybody like going downhill. that is cyclocross.
Okay.
Okay. And we're working, and we're working. Guess we're not. Okay.
More movies time.
Now we're working. Okay. This is not exactly how this would look. I had to show you something. They'll lay it out. If this is approved, they'll go by and they'll look at the terrain, and they'll figure out the best way to put obstacles that work the best for the terrain and the people that will use this track. The little red dots, I threw those in just where some obstacles might be. And as you can see, that is farmland. And speaking to the farmer, which is still Sherman Clyde, he is more than able and willing to continue farming that. It's just hay. He'll just go around the obstacles, but otherwise he'll be able to work as haying just like he always has. We would have a little parking lot down at the western end. There's already a drive-in right here. If I can get this right here. And so anyway, my arrow doesn't match up with that, but we'll have a parking lot there. And a little porta potty, trash can, probably throw on a picnic table if we can find one. And then right here is the Arboretum barn and their parking lot. Just from the road view facing southwest, southeast, and this is out on the Fountain property where they've had their temporary course in the past. And this is the pump track over at PCEI. The main difference here is that this course is considerably longer, and they also will not go out and build in all these berms and stuff like that. They work with the terrain that's there and the obstacles. Now that they'll develop, but they're removable if we ever decide we want to develop the property into something else. This was up in Coeur d'Alene at one of their, I don't know if this is a clinic, it looks like an actual race, and but I just threw that in there. It just looks like they're just having a blast. We did work through Public Works, and they did a line of sight triangle to make sure that we weren't having any safety issues. There is kind of a hill over here, but as cars come over, there's plenty of room. There was no issue with that. And you can see where the layout of a better layout of where the parking lot would be. I think on the other drawing I had it over here, but like I said, the development cost for this is estimated about $4,700, and that's primarily the parking lot. It's gravel. This project is considered temporary. So with that, we're trying to develop anything there that can be easily removed if we should ever need to. With that and the small amount of vehicles and people that would be there at any one time, and compare that to when we would have big ball field tournaments, things like that, very different. With that, we just didn't see all the safety issues that we might have had with a fully developed 44 acres. And so there's no cost to develop the trail. They basically ride their bikes, and that wears the pathway. We would be mowing. We figure it'll take just one sweep with the mower over the pathway. That gives you a small area that's mowed on either side of the track itself. I almost paused the the film because I showed it just how that looked with the grass mowed on either side. The obstacles, we'll get donations for that and the donated labor to build anything there that's needed, and we'll take advantage of the Palouse Racing Club. I do have Jerry Long here in the audience. He's one of the two that originally proposed this project. In case you have any technical questions I can't answer for you here. But they will be the ones to design the course and how that goes. Sherman Clyde offered to provide any assistance he can with this, so that's helpful as well. The annual operating costs, we need a porta potty, an ADA accessible porta potty, and trash, and we would need to go and empty the trash. So figured over time about $250 for gas and labor for trash pickup. And with that, the key points here is this is very neighbor friendly, and as you might figure, we're very sensitive, especially here, about how anything that we would do on this property would impact the neighbors. This fits right in with the Parks and Rec Master Plan that was adopted in 2013 as a healthy, active lifestyle activity. Primarily, we're targeting the youth here, but it would be open to adults as well. We don't want anybody not to be part of this. And low development costs, low annual operational costs, lots of volunteers to use on this. Is volunteer-oriented, the whole thing is. Usability for all ages. It's, as I mentioned before, it's simultaneously still farmed, and so very low impact on the property. The pathway with primarily the only developed areas would just be their obstacles. It's very low impact, so erosion's almost negligible, and I believe that is the presentation. Open for questions, but what we would like is your authorization to go forward with this. Funding, we identified that in here, and we have the line items be from the park supplies and R&M grounds, and we would begin development this spring.
Thanks. And I've attended, I guess, 3 probably Parks and Rec meetings where this has been discussed in the last few months. So I think I've had most of my questions answered already. John, it looked like you were going to raise a point.
I don't really have any questions other than I support this. All the homework appears to have been done, and any time that we can provide something for the kids, or in this case adults, teenagers, at the cost that you have presented, that is not obtrusive into the land itself, and quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, anything that keeps kids happy and busy and moving is neighborhood friendly by definition. So I am fully in favor of this project. I want to thank the people that put the work into it, especially the volunteers, because, as you said, they are, over time, going to be the ones that are going to make it a success. Mm-hmm. So,
Wayne, did you have any?
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful idea. I think it's a great use of the property on a temporary or even a long-term basis, if that's what it turns out to be. Just want to confirm the fact that this is not an improvement to the property, therefore the city's not required to do upgrades on street, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, and so on and so forth.
We did check that out, and primarily because of its usage and the fact that we're considering this temporary, the staff did not, and I went through community development and engineering, did not feel that this was necessary to be all those road improvements. And
that's what I suspected also. So I think it's a great idea. Yeah, and I would not like to see this put on the consent agenda. I'd like to see it put on a regular council agenda so it can be vetted out in public.
Promoted more.
Everybody knows what's going on.
Gary, it looked like you were going to raise a
No,
point?
just checking to see, since we are putting this out there as an activity, has it been run past the city attorney for liability issues, that sort of thing?
We talked to the city attorney early on. Primarily, the issues were just whether or not we needed to, the requirement to do the road improvements. This could have turned out very differently if the farmer could not have continued to farm, because at that point, then we would have been required to take care of that piece of the property. Right now, we don't have to take care of the weeds, we don't have to take care of the grass, any of that. He takes care of that. That would have, financially, that would have been a very different
So
picture.
essentially, he's just going to have the amount of the track less in hay.
Yes.
Good.
Gary?
Regarding the regular consent agenda, we do have our public hearing on the budget and the fee resolution for this next Monday. So I would ask for some indulgence if I sit down with the mayor and we put the agenda together, that if it appears we have a lot of regular agenda items, would it be, does the committee still want this on regular, or could it be moved to consent?
I'm okay with it going to consent
I'm fine with
if it's
consent.
easy.
If we have
I
time,
like it on the
don't have
regular
a
agenda.
problem
I
with
think
it.
this is something that should be out in front of the public so they can see what we're doing. I think it's a great thing for the kids. And I would like to, one way or the other, the public be really made aware of what we're doing or what we plan on
Put it
doing.
on the consent, we'll pull it off so that we can present it.
I might very well do that.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with Wayne, though, that it would be good to promote it and talk about it, but if the agenda needs to be manipulated, I think you and the mayor can
Okay, thanks.
make that decision. Okay, the next item on the agenda still includes Dwight up here with us, and it is the presentation of the Downtown Public Restroom Project proposal.
You know, it's going to be a whopper when the security alert comes up.
Oh, geez. More viruses.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you again. In 2014, one of the council goals is that city staff develop a process to solicit input from the stakeholders for a location and design of a restroom facility. And I wasn't going to put this on there, but we'll just be honest here. And develop a plan for funding by March 1st of 2014. I didn't realize there was a date on that, so I'm a little late, sorry. But we're still in 2014, so so at least I got the right century. We put together a steering committee, and we tried to get the stakeholders and staff and elected officials as part of this, the farmers market, arts, you name it. We've kind of got the whole shebang here. We have Gina Tarosio from the Chamber of Commerce. We have Melinda Schaub from Moscow Food Co-op, Grace Burnett from the New St. Andrews College, Walter Steed from the City Council, and Kathleen Burns, city staff. She's in charge of, she's the director of the arts and also in charge of the farmers market. We had Mike Ray with the he was planner with the community development, and myself. And we met several times over the last 2-3 months, and we went through a lot of different things, identifying possible locations for this, identifying the facility style. Do we keep it? Do we have it inside an existing facility, a standalone? Do we do a design build or a prefab? The traditional or modern? The facade, what's the exterior going to look like, and of course the cost, which is always a concern, funding plan for that, and the design process. And the locations, we checked with several of the businesses that are operating in the downtown area. We basically used anywhere within the farmers market area as our base to look, and we looked at empty buildings. And we looked at open areas that you might possibly have a standalone. We also looked at, some of those empty buildings, could you possibly purchase or lease the space to have this in there? And then there was also paying the businesses that currently are offering that the public use their facilities as it is. And then, of course, the Friendship Square area always seems to be the center focus area for this project, always has been, but we did look considerably further out than that. Of course, you had the water fountain area. It seems like a logical choice. All the infrastructure's already there. Adjacent to Friendship Square proper, anywhere right in that area, and the Jackson Street parking lot. And let's see, what we ended up with as a consensus was to recommend that a facility be placed in the Jackson Street parking lot. And this just seemed to cover all the bases that we needed. It's not central now to where the farmers market is, but it's central to where a lot of the parking for that is, a lot of the parking for anybody that's doing anything downtown, any of the functions that happen downtown, and also easy to, for signage down the road to let people driving on the roads know where there's a public restroom facility. And the businesses, there just wasn't a lot of interest. There was not very interested to very not interested in having a public facility within their businesses. From a staff point of view, my primary concern with that was there just seems to be this thing about vandalism in bathrooms. I don't know why the two are so attracted to each other, but to have this inside of a business just seemed really problematic, especially if it wasn't a city-owned facility. Yes, sir.
Dwight, you noted that Jackson Street parking lot, that's actually the 4th Street right-of-way, is it not? It's not part of the parking lot.
Well,
That's correct.
yeah.
Okay, so you don't have to enter the parking lot itself.
Correct.
Okay.
I guess I just
Thank you.
always thought that was part of it.
Okay, thank you.
So, yes, it's on 4th Street, and you can still access the rest of the parking lot there.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Good clarification. This just a schematic of that. Of course, Friendship Square is just to the top of that, and this is not to scale, but it's fairly close. The dimensions that, at least what we had as an example, fit perfectly with the parking spaces for some reason.
Question on that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, go ahead, Wayne.
You say that width of that is 22 feet, right? 20 feet.
20 feet depth.
Those parking spaces don't come out 20 feet.
These here do. These are longer than any of the others within the entire parking facility over there. You can park a U-Haul in there. They go 20 feet from the curb out to the end of the end of the stripes.
On a perpendicular line, not
On a straight.
Okay,
Straight.
Okay.
not following
I
the line
stand
itself.
corrected.
Correct. Yeah. And that was also part of the decision why that particular space.
You know how wide that sidewalk is that's behind it?
I did 10, 12 feet. It's wide. It's wider than anything else out there. Here's an example or a picture of that sidewalk, Jackson Street being to the far end. Here's our present restroom facility. We proposed to actually put a structure there, and it would go right about here. You guys didn't catch my humor there, did you? Okay. But this being an extra wide sidewalk, the crosswalk at the other end, it's just a natural and almost a perfect setting for this. Little bit of another angle to this. This is just from the outside of the playground area. Right here, this is a trailer where for the farmers market. This was one of the areas that we thought about placing this as well, was right here. But it just crowded, into the Friendship Square too much. And again, over here, this is where the facility would be, and the sidewalk is right there.
Are you, which direction would the entrance face, south or north?
South.
Okay.
So onto the park,
Onto the sidewalk, yes. Just a picture of the fountain, the areas we looked at. There has been some desire to replace this or remove it. There is infrastructure already there, but at the same time, putting the restroom, it just didn't seem to have a lot of desire. Hyper Spuds, putting a bathroom right outside their door just seemed a little tight. In this other area, just was more suitable. This way, children that are, for example, that are over at the playground don't have to cross the traffic just to get to the bathroom. Some more of the islands in Jackson Street parking lot. There's a sidewalk. You can see the difference in the sidewalk there. That's one of the sidewalks that's just not nearly big enough. We looked at whether this be a standalone facility, or I'm sorry, I've got actually a typo there. I meant a design build, or a prefab. Did we want to go with the traditional type of restroom facility, or did we want to go modern? And on the facade, the consensus was to go with reclaimed red brick, so it matches the downtown older buildings. To make it a gender-specific, each side of the facility with 2 toilets per side. Just by code, if you go, they go in twos, one on one side, one on the other. If you go past 2 per side, then the way the requirements are is then we have to put in the family changing room. So this also kept a considerable price down by keeping it 2 per side.
Kept the price down.
Down.
We're in the wrong business.
Yeah.
$143,000, and that's not in
That's
2017 dollars. That's in 2014 dollars. So in 3 more years, we can probably add another $20,000 to $30,000. We are in the wrong business, Dwight.
We could be. This here is an example of the type of facility that we're looking at, except it would have the red brick. And this is just an example. And we would still have the privacy wings, and they would butt up against the sidewalk, and you'd walk just right off the sidewalk into either side.
Yes, John.
In all of the stuff that we have, I didn't see any information about whether or not this was a need versus a want.
This is a directive from the council, so I guess that's a determination for you guys. We were directed to do this by council.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a council goal.
And so the job given the committee was to look at it and to come up with a viable plan, present the plan, and whether or not it was something that was needed downtown, and compare that with the price. Was not your purview.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
But we did look at the prices, and, we didn't shoot for gold standard. We just shot for what was usable, what would still look nice, and I do have some more discussion when it comes to the modern stuff, because there is some there that is a little bit less expensive. But there's a price that comes with that. It's just not necessarily dollars.
The stand-up
Yeah.
wraparound thing.
Exhibition.
Wayne.
When the committee looked at this, was there any discussion as to how much usage it would actually see?
Well, Yes, but I mean, we don't have any data to say exactly how much it would be used. So right now, I mean, especially on, farmers markets days or just during the day, when business is booming downtown, people are using the businesses and their restrooms now.
I think, my feelings on this, I think that there's still a lot of things that are somewhat intangible, some things that we may not know. We do have folks that are using the restrooms in some of the businesses, but they may in fact be patronizing those businesses at the same time. I'm really curious as to the numbers that would be using this and when those usage would be. And where I'm coming from is I suspect very strongly that during farmers market on Saturday is when they would really be used, okay? And so I'll pick a number. Let's say we had 500 people use it in a given week. I would guess that 350 of those would be during the farmers markets on Saturdays. So essentially, we're talking about $140,000 or whatever to give restrooms for when we have farmers market. Not necessarily a bad thing. But now I'm wondering would it really be a better usage of money to put in ADA accessible porta potties? And the other thing I would like to know, and I think we can find this out if we did that, and that's put a counter on the door so that it automatically counts when people go in, how many times it's being used, and it's monitored. We spent a lot of money on the restrooms at East City Park. Some of us kind of cringed a little bit when we finally got the price tag for that. But I suspect it's pretty heavily used, especially in the summertime. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm not ready to say I'm going to go out and spend $140,000 on this and to sign the check, so to speak. I'd really like to know what the need really is, because if farmers market's all over with, and then we go into the fall, the winter, and the spring months, and it's not hardly used at all, are we spending money wisely by doing that?
Well, I'm going to jump in and say that I'm very excited about this project because when I travel in whatever community, whenever I arrive in a community, I have two questions. I want to know where the bathroom is and where the information center is. And there are some places where I've traveled where it's very clearly marked. Every little town in New Zealand, for example, when I went there a bunch of years ago, when you came into the town, you knew exactly where the public restroom was, and you knew exactly where the information center was. And it made visiting those communities welcoming. And I felt like I was more willing to spend money, spend time, engage in that community. I know that when I travel in this country and I go to a community and the sign says restrooms for customers only, I just skip that business. I don't even go. I just go on to the next one because I don't feel that, I feel that, well, I'm using this restroom because I just don't feel like it's, that I'm necessarily, I just feel like it's important for businesses to be more welcoming than that and to say, hey, look, we want you to come in, we want you to use the restroom. And I feel the same way is true with the city, that we should be welcoming and that we should be encouraging people to be in our town and spend time. So I like the idea. So, Gary, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think it's fine to debate whether or not at this point this council feels that there's a need for downtown restrooms. I can tell you that it's been a discussion item for the 22 years I've been with the city, and certainly it rose to the level of being a council goal. Councilmember Sue Scott championed that goal, and it was the only goal that was added to the goals from the previous year when it was added last year. So there's been, of course, you have your restrooms, and as part of the police station, they are not ADA accessible unless you utilize the back door of the police station. People have to walk through it. Now the farmers market, of course, utilizes the good graces of New St. Andrews College, so on and so forth. Having a downtown restroom has always been a concern of the city, and if the price tag is too much, then certainly that debate can be had. But as it sits right now, staff's merely bringing back to you the goal that you gave us.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Comments. We did discuss a lot of the items that Councilman Kraus just brought up. One being, I think your numbers are way low during farmers market.
Prove it.
Well,
You think one thing, I think another, but
yeah.
show me. That's all I'm saying, Dwight. Show me the numbers.
I can't show you.
I know you
And like I
can't.
said, this was just directed, but I just think that your numbers are just really low. During the slow time, I would imagine that's what your numbers would be. The parking lot, this would be signed for people traveling through town. One of the items that we talked about was, Chamber of Commerce is right there. We would likely have some kind of informational kiosk of sorts that would be part of this facility attached to it in some arts way, things like that. So people would pull in there to use that facility, but also possibly purchase goods or whatever, stop and dine while they're there, just things like that.
Dwight, I think that's fine, and I think if that is in fact the facts, then I can support that. But right now, I haven't been presented anything that shows those kind of numbers. Okay, if those numbers are as big as you're saying, then we absolutely need it. What I don't want to have is folks coming to me and saying, so now you're going to spend $140,000 so the farmers market can have restrooms. I'm not going to deal with that comment right now until I have more information as far as a year-round need, a week-long need. One question I would have is, what are the hours that they would be open? I'm assuming not 24 hours a day.
Well, of course, we don't have rules set yet, but our thought was that we would close it before the bars closed. Probably have magnetic timed locks.
Gary.
I would note as well, Elisa just reminded me that we do have an ADA transition plan which has been approved by the council, and we're moving ahead with that. Farmers Market is an activity of the city. We have several other activities on Friendship Square throughout, city-sponsored activities throughout the year. Friendship Square is a designated city park, and it is a city park without a public restroom, one of the few city parks.
We have a number of city parks without restrooms. In fact, we have one, Burnside Creek Park, that has an ADA accessible porta potty.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying porta potties can't work.
I don't think we want to be the town with the porta potty in the downtown. I don't think we should be doing that. That looks like a construction site. I mean, that's my personal opinion, that's not what we want here. That's not a substitute for this. I do believe that we need a good publicly accessible restroom downtown. I do know that there are many, many businesses in downtown Moscow that are welcoming and encouraging for people to use their facilities, perhaps because we haven't provided that yet. But I do think that it's time for us to step up and make sure that we're providing this facility, or a facility like this. I wanted to ask if there was anybody in the audience that...
I do have a lot more presentation here.
Okay.
If you want me to get that before we get to that.
Okay, why don't you finish, and then I'll allow for folks if they want to add comments.
Okay. And this was just an example, but here's what it would look like, top view, just standard restroom. And then from the outside, and of course we were talking reclaimed red brick. This is the front view. Here's a side view. As far as utilities that already exist, sorry, I could have probably taken some of the words out there. But anyway, as far as sanitary, 6-inch main is right in the alley. Storm drain is there and available. Water, we would have to, it would likely come from Jackson Street. We would have to dig that, and that would be, I don't know that price to do that was not included in the $143,000 for the facility. The prefabs, fairly close in costs for similar type facilities. The cost that we described here did not include the arts. The design build gives you more flexibility with how you design it. The prefabs, though they do have a lot of things that you can do to them to change the price. I mean, that's where they get you on their costs, is when you change the designs, and they basically come as a plain Jane and then goes up from there. On the modern facilities, all kinds of stuff out there. Some of it's not available in the United States. Some is, or some is, some are, and some are very
Public?
public.
The deal with the guy with the newspaper.
Well, I just couldn't.
Wait, glass, and you're on the inside looking out?
Yes,
Still not comfortable.
This is the low-cost version.
and this was much preferable to a porta potty.
Your numbers down.
I actually had to look that one up and figure that out. I
Yeah,
couldn't,
not two,
but it's
only one,
that's
right?
one of those one with glass jobs. So, but as we started looking through some of this stuff, there's one example that I don't have on here, but there was a prefab, one of these modern types that Seattle purchased, and they paid $1 million a piece for them. They bought 5, and it was a total disaster. So,
What did they do for you?
well, they provided a
What,
good
you
place
just
for
walked by and it was done, or what?
It provided a good place for the drugs to take place, is my understanding. So they got rid of them. So you basically have a couple varieties here. Once you start putting in the amenities that you want, the price starts to go up. The center one was the one that was probably the most doable for our purposes, but as you could see, a very plain Jane was $115,000, but I believe that had 2 different restrooms, I think, in that one. So, and the rest of these are single toilets. The Portland Zoo, or Lou, I'm sorry, is, I guess, pretty popular there, but it is very public, and it's meant that way. They don't want people to linger in the bathrooms, so they make it as uncomfortable for you as possible. Personally, I can't see that working here. And if we're not going to have people go in the bathrooms because they're uncomfortable, then what was the point in spending the money to begin with? But from a vandalism point of view, I guess that they say that works. But that was almost $100,000, and that was for 1 toilet. So we thought we'd throw that stuff in there so you could just kind of see where that goes. Summary of the recommendation from the committee, based on the council goal, was to have a design-build standalone facility in the traditional style. It's a 4-toilet, 2 women, 2 men, reclaimed red brick facade, located in on the 4th Street parking lane adjacent to Jackson Street parking lot. The estimate, and this was a rough estimate, was at $143. The funding plan we could accumulate through the budget process. I just threw in the 2017 to give us a couple years, starting in 2016 to start accumulation. Talking to grants manager Elise Anderson, there are some possibilities or she was looking into seeing if there were possibilities into some grants. Some of this, our status change that took place, last week at council, some of those actually might possibly qualify us for some funding for a downtown restroom. I don't know how much, and she would still be looking into that, but in a nutshell, that was it. If the council's interested in going forward with this, the design process, we do have $10,000 in the present budget that was earmarked specifically to design a facility, this facility, and at the time, going through the budget process, didn't know if we would get there, so I included that also in the 15 budget. So we have it either way if you would like staff to go forward with this design. And as we would get more details, of course, we would certainly bring those to council. And that's the proposal.
Well, I think we can certainly make better decisions if we have better design ideas and tighter cost estimates.
How does this compare in size to the one we put up in East City Park?
Actual size-wise, I don't know that I could tell you that off the top of my head.
Oh,
but
what
we've
do you
got
think?
you've got an entire changing room bigger.
In East City.
Yes,
What did we end up paying for that? What was the bottom?
about 168, I think.
168, and it's bigger because it has the changing room in it. Okay. I know, I got one question. Walter asked me to ask this question. If you go back, there's one slide that we have, I don't know if you had it up there, that actually shows the farmer's market trailer
Yes.
parked there. Walter says if you're over on Main Street, the trailer blocks the view of where the restroom facility would be. So is that an issue? That was the question he wanted me to ask, so.
Well, initially, our discussion, we included storage for farmer's market as part of this, but, every square foot just increases the cost. And as far as moving or removing the trailer, that did not come up as part of the exchange of not including it in the bathroom.
So that raises a question for me. If we were to have farmers market storage in part of the building, could we cost out that portion of the building to the farmers market? I don't know what that source would be, but if we could say, hey, this is a piece of the building that is farmers market storage, and we put the chairs in there, the table, the speakers, whatever it might be, then perhaps that's...
Certainly you can have that discussion, but farmers market, as you know, is heavily subsidized by the city now.
I know,
So,
I'm just trying to have that discussion.
Yeah,
Or
and
raise that
it's
issue.
it's not a bad idea at all. The question becomes, what's the priority at that
Sure.
point? Elisa is also, as Dwight said, looking into grant opportunities. We don't know where those will come out yet, but we may have some opportunities to try and offset the cost as well. But
John?
Well, since you brought up farmers market and the storage problem, is there a legal issue if we were to say, pick a number, $5 a week per vendor per season? And that would go to defraying the costs of this restroom.
no, I don't think there's anything that is preventing you from charging, because it's a user fee, charging farmers market vendors what it costs to operate the farmers market. The issue has become, and as it's been debated in council for the last couple of years, is how much of farmers market is an entrepreneurial activity to the benefit of the vendors, and how much of it is a societal or a celebration, festival type situation. Runs about 26, 28 weeks a year, every week during that period of time. So, I don't know that the need for a downtown restroom is dictated solely by farmers market. A lot of cities have public restrooms in their downtown core. Question is it something that this council thinks is necessary?
I'm not making the restroom farmer's market link directly, I don't think as much as Wayne is. I know, of course, people that are using the farmer's market will use the restroom, but I was thinking specifically of that storage piece. I, for one, believe that the restroom's going to get use all the time, all week long, from all sorts of people, whether they're residents of Moscow or visitors coming here and getting excited about our town. So I feel like there are all sorts of uses. Perhaps at some point we can kind of try to assign those uses, but I wonder if there's anybody from the audience that wanted to say anything on this topic. If there was somebody that wanted to say, please come up and introduce yourself.
Victoria Seaver, 121 North Willie, Moscow. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I will. I think Moscow presents itself as a city that's a cut above, and I think it is, and I don't want to see a porta potty. I'd rather there not be a restroom than that there be a porta potty downtown. I think if the city can can afford this, I can't tell you the numbers, but I think it should if it can. I think there are other reasons it'll be used. You have Art Walk, you have other activities that go on downtown. You have people coming into town to see the UI and compare UI with Wazoo and Montana and whatever. And they'll be cruising through town. It's close to the chamber. They'll be going to the chamber. They'll be looking into other issues like apartments and so on and so forth. And I think having a restroom downtown is a good idea. I don't want it by the fountain. I think that's
Let me clarify what I said. I think what I said is being taken out of context.
Okay.
I am not advocating for a permanent porta potty at all. I would not want to see that either. My comment had to do with a porta potty with a counter so we knew how many people were actually using it. That was all. And maybe a porta potty for a year or two until the other one was built. Hadn't thought about that. I am not advocating for a permanent porta potty.
Okay, that's good. Because I wouldn't advocate for it either.
Thanks, Victoria.
Okay.
Gina wants to come up, I think.
Hi, guys. Thank you for the chance to come up and visit. I would very, very strongly...
Go ahead and say your name again.
Identify yourself, Gina.
Yeah, we don't know
Sorry.
who you are.
Gina Terusio.
Yeah.
I'm the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, and I live, for the most part, at 411 South Main.
Okay, thank you.
A good part of my day, actually.
Yes, I
waking,
imagine so.
Waking hours. I would wholeheartedly, both feet, as enthusiastically as I can, encourage you to move forward with the fact-finding phase of this. Take the $10,000, get the design going, and let's try the counters on temporary porta potties, but let's keep them on New St. Andrews and the Co-op and some of those places as well, because I think you're going to be surprised. And I would agree with Dr. Curtis over here. The counts are going to be way higher than you realize. I still, we put our signs, our restrooms under construction signs up about a year ago, and we realized our plumbing was as old as it is. And I still get flack for having this be the longest project on the planet. So I really, really cannot be more enthusiastic about this project. We really need it. And honestly, living and working and doing business in Moscow does include, each one of those includes using a restroom at some point in the game.
Thank you. So, can we move forward on the planning part of it, the 10,000 piece?
Yeah, I'm good for moving forward. I agree with Gina. Move forward with the design on this, but also with some more information on data as far as usage. I'm hearing a lot of, I think, and I feel, and I believe. I don't feel like I can make monetary decisions on our tax money without some data to back it up.
I'll go along with the 10,000. I would like to see a lot more information having to do with, do we really need one? We've gotten along without one for a long time. That doesn't mean that we need to continue to get along without one. but it does lead me to believe that it may be a want and not a need.
Gary?
If the council is having doubts whether or not the data will support whatever the baseline is for having a downtown restroom, it would be my recommendation that you not proceed with the planning at this point. Why plan for something that if the data doesn't come back in a way that the council wants it to come back, it may not proceed, in which case you'd have $10,000 worth of plans sitting on the shelf. It seems to me the discussion ought to occur as to whether or not what the council needs to become comfortable with this project. We have a location, we have the groundwork that was done by the committee. Once the council is satisfied that they wish to proceed with this goal, then everything's ready to go. We can then proceed with the design. But I can't see moving ahead logically with a plan if there is a chance that that plan won't be funded.
Can't this plan ask that question? I mean, to me, this is being brought to us by Parks and Rec. I'm feeling like it's a little bit deeper than Parks and Rec as a city responsibility to have a restroom in the downtown. So I'm just wondering, can this 10K include?
It was delegated to Parks and Rec because it's a Parks and Rec facility.
The Friendship Square, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and that's great, but I'm wondering if the aspect of the need that I think Wayne and John are talking about, the question of that is perhaps deeper than Parks and Rec's purview. I wonder if there's some other component of the city that can say, hey, yeah, we can answer that question.
Well,
and so can that be part of this 10K, this step that we're doing right now?
Can we put this in the city questionnaire?
The city,
there you go.
Biannual city survey?
Yeah.
We certainly could.
3 or 4 questions.
We probably need a chance to regroup a little bit. I'm presuming, Dwight, from the backup, that this $10,000 is for design.
For design.
Services.
I understand that, but on a parallel, while this is being designed, can we ask the question, can we somehow get the answer to the question of the need? If that's a question.
Yeah.
To me, I think it's obviously a yes, but if it's not across the board among council, that's answered.
Well, perhaps a way to...
Let me interject something in here. First of all, I don't want to see this, all of a sudden, if we don't go along with the $10,000, I don't want to see this suddenly move back on a back burner that's not even turned on, and it's one of these projects that suddenly we just haven't heard anything again for 8 or 10 or 12 months. Okay? I want to see this, I want to see the information come forward very quickly, and I think that can be done. I think by interviewing the different businesses on what they anticipate, what they see coming in, people that are more involved in downtown things. Gary?
Well, I think you can get anecdotal data. The trouble is, if you take counts at this point, they're going to be farmers market counts. If you do an annual counting, then at least you'd have some non-farmers market, you'd see your homecoming parade, you'd see your art walk, and those sorts of things. So I don't know how you can take the farmers market impact out of it without having longer. If you're just going to do it in this period of time, you're going to get farmers market. Yeah. That's that. And I'm not in any way suggesting that we back burner this or not. I'm just suggesting that we're probably not ready with this discussion to go to council on Monday night. Probably needs to be referred back to staff to take a look at bringing some different options, try and answer some of those questions that this committee would like answered.
Well, and maybe that's okay, too, because if we're, Dwight, throughout the year 2017, by the time funds are accumulated, I'm assuming this is if we didn't find any grant money, if we didn't spend the $10,000 3 months from now and we spend it 12 months from now, there's really going to be slow down in the process of getting one up. If, in fact, we decide, yep, that's what we want to do, let's get it built, that wouldn't slow the timeline down, correct?
Not at all.
It's budgeted in the FY 2015 budget.
And at the same time, just asking the downtown business people the question, I think, is leaving out the rest of the people in the city as far as what their opinion may or may not be. Consequently, if we were to put 2, 3, 4, 5 questions in the citizen survey, which has been shown to be statistically valid over the years, then I think we're going to have a much better idea, at least, of what the citizens want. And if the citizens want it and are willing to pay for it, then we've got what we need to have to move forward or not move forward.
Yes, Gary.
I note that we have 3 other items and a report on the agenda and a half hour left.
I need to move this.
If your direction is that staff go back, regroup, bring some additional information to the council or committee, we certainly can do that.
Yes.
That's
my desire.
It sounds like that's what we want.
Okay.
I want the restroom, but we can slow it down a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right,
Thanks, Dwight.
Thanks, Dwight. The next item on the agenda is Legacy Crossing Market Assessment and Absorption Study Professional Services Agreement with Bill Belknap.
Afternoon.
Thank you.
I'll be fairly brief. As the council is aware, the city adopted the Legacy Crossing Urban Renewal Plan in June of 2008. That plan encompassed and covered about a 163-acre district, incorporating the historical ag industrial district located between the downtown core and the University of Idaho campus. Our office worked on some design guidelines and zoning reconfigurations that were adopted by the council in 2012. And last year, the University of Idaho acquired a little over 4 acres of property, or our landowner in the core area, but also acquired an additional 4 acres of property in that core area of Legacy Crossing District. The city's the urban renewals plan and the city's design guidelines and zoning anticipates a mixture of uses for future development in that corridor. And after the U of I acquired the property in 2013, there began a series of conversations between the university, the urban renewal agency, and the city about the university's intended use of that property and future development in that area. Part of that conversation over the course of the last year has really begun to focus on the need to conduct a market study to really understand what is supportable in the marketplace. And we can hope and wish for a number of different outcomes, but if it isn't supported in the market today, or at least if we don't understand the gap that needs to be overcome through some other form of subsidy, incentive, or other contribution to be able to realize that ultimate outcome, then we may be sitting for quite some time trying to hope that comes along. That ultimately ended up in a discussion of a jointly funded market assessment and study that would look at the entirety of the Legacy Crossing District and look at the local economy, look at market rates, absorption rates, and really help us, give us some better information about what can we anticipate to program out for land uses. So when the university that ultimately purchased that 4-acre property with the desire to place that out and make it available for private development, that we can really have a good understanding about what type of development should we be looking for, and we can go into that situation with a better understanding than what we have today. This was led up by Jeff Jones in his prior capacity with the city. He put out a solicitation to 4 to 5 different firms who specialize in this kind of work, and ultimately recommended that we utilize Johnson Economics from Portland, Oregon. The university has committed $12,000 to funding the study. The Moscow Urban Renewal Agency has identified $5,000 they could contribute, and we have identified $7,000 that we will not be expending this year within the Community Development Professional Services line item that was for the city entryway beautification. We were able to complete that project without having to utilize all the funding that had been identified that we could contribute to the effort. The cost of the study is $23,000 with up to an additional $1,000 in reimbursable expenses, and it's anticipated there will be about a 10-week completion time for that effort. So we have a professional services agreement that's in your packet that we're looking for the council's approval. The contract and the agreement would be between Johnson Economics and the City of Moscow, with reimbursement funding coming from the University of Idaho and the Urban Renewal Agency. Within the scope, there was one typo in sections 3 and 4. Section 3 was redundant. We actually had expanded the scope under section 4, so 3 should actually be removed and 4 would remain on the residential market assessment component. So we'll make sure we get that cleaned up on the final draft before it comes before the council.
John.
Well, this has been around for a while, and the university has obviously decided to take on at least half the cost. The Urban Renewal Agency has decided to put some of its funds into, so we've got a lot of people with skin in the game, and we have not seen a whole lot of development in that new Legacy Crossing, and this hopefully would give us the direction as to what kind of businesses might be interested, and maybe we've been going at it the way we should, maybe we haven't been going at it the way we should, but I do think we should spend this, so I would be in favor of recommending the approval of the proposed professional services agreement.
I agree with John.
I'm in favor of it. I'm particularly happy to see that we're being partnered again with University of Idaho towards economic development. They're actually paying half the share, which is good. So yeah, I would certainly recommend moving forward.
And I think we could probably put this on one on the consent agenda. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Let's move on. Thank you, Bill. The next is the draft ordinance amending peddlers, solicitors, canvassers, secondhand dealers, pawnbrokers, and vendors with Rod Hall.
And lawyers.
And not peddlers, but peddlers.
Yes. Good afternoon. I was asked to look at providing a process for business license renewals. Currently, the city provides businesses licenses for taxis, secondhand dealers, pawnbrokers, vendors. We also provide proof of registration for peddlers, solicitors, and canvassers. The city requires background checks on the applicants, and those include fingerprints. We also do an Idaho State Police and local criminal history on all applicants. The city right now has a license renewal process for taxis that only require new fingerprints for every 5 years. It was asked to look at a renewal process for the other licenses and include only requiring fingerprints every 5 years rather than a new application and a new set of fingerprints every year. The renewal process will include a reduced fee for the renewals without the fingerprints, but it will also continue to require the Idaho State Police and the local criminal history checks. And then while I was going through the city ordinances, noticed that they were probably instituted or implemented at several different time periods. Thought it was a good time to maybe amend the other parts in the code dealing with those licenses to provide a more uniform process for licenses, application process, renewals, denials, and revocations. And so that's what we did here. We just kind of cleaning up the code, and we're just adding a renewal process similar to the taxi license that would only require the fingerprints for every 5 years. Yes.
John.
That's kind of what I was, when I read through this, and the renewal of license, it appeared to me that that's exactly what you did, is you just, for every area, whether it was a pawnbroker's license, taxi license, you put that verbiage in so that there would be no question as to what they were going to have to do and what the city was going to do as far as checking on them to make sure that their license was current, and then the other things having to do with the application, the original application, and then the renewal, and then the denial of license, and most of that stuff, once you move a number, you have to move all the other numbers, and I have no problem with this.
Carrie.
Stephanie just pointed out to me that the change in the regulations for taxi licenses for renewals does increase, but the other license renewals come down, so it's kind of a middle ground for both.
In some cities, actually, when they do the application, they have a price, and then the renewal is usually the same price, so there's not a real break. This one, since we're not going to be required to do the fingerprints every year, that would lower the cost. But there is a cost of doing background checks, and right now the fees that we charge I don't think cover the actual cost.
And are those fees being modified in the fee resolution that
Yes.
we're being considered today? Okay. Wayne?
It looks like, overall, it just allows for greater consistency on the ones that are required to have licenses, so, yeah, a good thing.
All right. Well, let's move this forward to the council meeting. It is an ordinance, so we put it on the regular agenda.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And item number 6, which is state-local agreement, middle schools, safe routes to school, safety improvements, Moscow key number 14337, Community Choices for Idaho Grant Award, with Elisa and Kevin.
Good afternoon. That's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a long one.
This project was brought before you in the spring of 2013 when we submitted the grant application. The Idaho Transportation Department had combined some of their smaller programs, Safe Routes to School and transportation alternatives, those types of things, into one program under the MAP 21 regulations that the Federal Transit Administration had brought forth for the new funding bill. We applied for a project at the Moscow Middle School, which would improve walking and biking safety and decrease traffic congestion on D Street and through the parking lot. So I think I won't go into all the little details of the project. I think your report that we had attached to it went into the detail. What we're looking at today is an agreement, state-local agreement, that we need to have permission for its execution. And there's been some hurdles along the way in getting a corrected agreement put together. There's been a lot of transition in the Idaho Transportation Department. It's been called the Division of Transportation Performance. And this program, being new, didn't really have all the bugs worked out. And some of the process of what we were told in the beginning was not how it could end up being, how it could be constructed. So we have an agreement now that we're pretty comfortable with based upon discussions with ITD staff. The problem is that we were told last Thursday that we needed to have this document executed and in their hands by Thursday. Otherwise, we would lose our $485,000 in funding.
Great.
And so Kevin and I are bringing this forth to you.
Ladies.
Yes. Yes.
Great.
There's a corresponding resolution which will still go to council on Monday through the regular process.
Formalize.
Yes. However, I would ask for your permission to go ahead and have the mayor, based upon the other committee's approval also, to execute the contract so that we can move forth with maintaining that funding.
Well, I'm very excited about this. I think I've said before in other meetings that I've heard from numerous people in the community that we need to do something about that spot with traffic flow, whether it's vehicle or pedestrian traffic, and I think it's great that we're attending to this. So I'm very excited about having this move forward, and look forward to the mayor signing this and moving it on this week.
What he said.
Ditto?
What he said.
Ditto.
Yes,
I'll take it.
let's get this moved forward. Let's do it.
That's great.
Let's get it done.
Is there
Get it
anything to
down
share,
there.
Kevin?
What you said.
Okay, ditto.
Since I'm sitting on the next committee, Public Works, I'll already tell you, yeah, so.
Okay.
And we will bring this forward for ratification on
Monday.
the 18th.
And that could be done, I guess, on consent agenda.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's just a resolution. Great. Okay, well, then the last thing we have is just, I guess, a fairly quick report about the Farmers Market social media update and the Moscow Farmers Market with Barry Magara and, did I say it? Magara? Okay, that's right. And DJ Scalar.
Hi, I'm DJ Scallon, the arts assistant for the City of Moscow. And I just wanted to talk today a little bit of an update on the Farmers Market social media. There are a number of sites that the Farmers Market is on as far as social media goes. Of course, we've got the big boys, Facebook and Twitter. There's also Yelp, TripAdvisor, Foursquare, Local Harvest, which is just a site for farmers market and farmers. Visit Idaho, which is, of course, for the entire state of Idaho, just events and things going on in the state. Food Hub, again, is another farmer food source market source online. Farmersmarket.com, it does exist. Agrilicious Soil Mate, again, is for farmers and farmers market. Idaho Preferred, the USDA Agricultural Marketing Service, is entire directory of national farmers markets. And then farmersmarketonline.com. I was going to mainly focus on Facebook. The Moscow Farmers Market joined Facebook May 13th, 2011. By the end of that season in 2011, it had 50 fans or likes on the page. As of last week on August 6th, we had 1,761 fans. I checked it just before the meeting, 1,783. So we are increasing every day, every year, every season. We garner more fans and more people that like the Moscow Farmers Market, a larger group of people that we can reach with our posts. We do weekly posts during the season, music, events, vendors of the weeks, what's coming to the market, vendor blasts, vendor updates, frequently asked questions, those types of posts. Outside of the market season, we do mainly the frequently asked questions, updates, important information for our vendors and for the public. This is an example of the admin side of the Facebook page. This shows you on the left side of the screen, you'll see the dates and the individual posts that we've made. With the yellow bars, you see the total reach that those posts had. Again, this is from last week on August 6th. So as each day passes and as Facebook, reaches more people, those numbers do go up. Definitely per week, the majority of our posts that are reaching the vast majority of our audience are posts done by the market vendor, Barry McGarrett, at the market that Saturday morning. You can see close to the bottom where it says brave the heat and come down to Main Street. Those are just images of products and vendors and what's available that Saturday. Come and join us. Last week, our second highest post was the one second from the top. It was how to care for your wood products, your wood bowls, your wood cutting boards. And it was just kind of a how-to, and we had a vendor actually comment on that, saying that, he'd be more than happy to answer their questions if people wanted more additional information.
That's great.
So again, you can just see that reach the individual posts have. And you can also see under the engagement column the number of people who have clicked the actual post itself or liked or commented on it. So it gives you an idea of what the individual posts are like. And then this is an example of one of Barry's posts from the market on Saturday. You can see Brave the Heat and Come Down to Moscow with the individual pictures. People can click on the pictures, scroll through them, and see all of them. There were a number of pictures. There were 8 total, and this is only a representation of the first floor. But you can see the comments and the likes that are on this post. And then I'll let Barry address some of the things about how he selects the vendors and what products he features on Saturday.
Yeah, so advertising is a huge issue for us at the farmers market. Our vendors are constantly asking us how are we continuing to get the word out for them about people and their product. And so each Saturday morning, as I stroll up and down the street and look at what people are putting out, anything that looks intriguing, something new for the season, anything like that, I shoot pictures of and post to Facebook and try to use it to get people to get out of their house or stop what they're doing and come down. A lot of people are just waiting for something to come into season, something to turn ripe. And so when something is new that week or new to the season, we try to get pictures of it so that we can show them that it's here now and they can come get it. And so it's great for people in Moscow, people in the area, to without even leaving their house to see what's at the market and then give them a reason to come down. So
that's great.
So again, it's just a recap of the market, what our social media is, how we reach our public. Do you have any questions?
Well, I think it's great. I see the posts. And boy, this last Saturday was a real pride-making moment for Moscow with the crowds at the farmers market. It was huge. I arrived at 10 o'clock and it was packed from 6th Street all the way up to 3rd. It was, lots of people playing music, in various spots. It was just a real fun thing. And the added bonus of the CBS News camera crew that was in town to do a piece on Roger Raleigh's fruit plate piece in the Pritchard Art Gallery, and they were videotaping, and they were really impressed with Moscow, Idaho, and the farmers market. So it was pretty exciting to see their enthusiasm. And they asked, they found out I was a city council member, and they asked a lot of questions about this town and why food here, what's going on. And so they were just really excited, and they say, wow, I can really see why people want to live in Moscow. So it was exciting to see all of the people, the enthusiasm, the choice of foods, the choice of other products at the farmers market. And it's neat to see it on social media, and I see both Facebook and Twitter stuff that come across. So
we have people every week from different parts of the country. Even last week, a lady stopped me. She's from Canada. She goes, I've been to a lot of farmers markets, but this has got to be the best one I've ever been to. We have people, we just picked up another gentleman, drives almost all the way from Pendleton to vend at it's profitable to drive all that way and vend at our market.
That's
so
great.
We continue to pick up people from our area and just continue to grow because this is a really good thing that the city has going on.
Well, you're doing terrific work. Thanks for marketing this.
How did your canning demonstrations go?
Pretty well. Right? Yeah, we do canning demos, and then we also do food saver demonstrations. So we just did that this last week. It was our third. So many people don't know what a food saver is, or have never seen it in action, or know how it could benefit them. So it's really enjoyable to see people kind of go, "Oh, that's really neat."
Well, I heard a lot of really good comments about your demonstrations and actually your teaching.
Thanks.
So
That's neat.
Yeah.
That's just another one of those things that adds to it.
That's right.
John.
How many vendors do we have at the farmers market?
There are 65 seasoned vendors, and if you include the walk-on vendors, currently to date, approved vendors is over 120.
All right.
Yeah. This last week we had over 100 vendors present last Saturday.
All right.
That was fun.
That's good. That's very good.
Well, on Saturday, I loaded up a case of tomatoes, a case of peaches, a couple of cantaloupes, a few bags of peppers and eggplants. And last night, I processed all that food and made all sorts of lunches for the fall. So
That's
I
fantastic.
grilled and baked all sorts of stuff, and am freezing it now, so I have lunches into the fall. It's great that we have that market.
Yeah, it is great.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
With that, I believe we are adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.